Betrayal never comes from the enemy standing in front of you. It comes from the people standing right behind you, or in Dante Valenti's case, the woman sitting on his lap. In the underworld, love is a liability, and trust is just a slow way to die. One ordinary waitress at Manhattan's most exclusive lounge saw what the most feared man in the city missed: a subtle nod, a checked watch, a text message sent under the table. With one crumpled napkin, she changed the fate of the city's criminal empire. But saving the devil comes with a price, and Dante Valenti always collects his debts. The air inside the Obsidian Lounge didn't smell like cigarettes or stale beer. It smelled like oud wood, chilled vodka, and old money. It was the kind of place where a bottle of wine cost more than Elena Vance's entire year of rent, and the clientele treated the staff like moving furniture. Elena adjusted the waist apron of her uniform, smoothing the black fabric over her hips. She was 24, with dark hair pulled back into a severe bun that made her cheekbones look sharper than they were. She was invisible here. That was the job. To be seen only when a glass was empty, and to vanish the moment it was full. Table 4 needs a refresh on the Macallan. The floor manager, a nervous man named Arthur, hissed into her earpiece. And for God's sake, smile, Vance. You look like you're at a funeral. Maybe I am, Elena muttered to herself, grabbing a fresh bottle of sparkling water and the heavy crystal decanter of Macallan 25. Table 4 was the power table. It was set in the back, nestled in a semicircular booth upholstered in crushed red velvet, elevated slightly above the rest of the floor. It was the throne, and the king was holding court. Dante Valenti. Even if you didn't know the name, you felt the gravity. He was a man carved from granite and tailored in Italian wool. He wore a charcoal three-piece Brioni suit that fit his broad shoulders as if it had been stitched onto him by the gods of war. His dark hair was swept back, his eyes the color of burnt espresso, dark, bitter, and alert. He didn't look relaxed, even with a drink in his hand. He looked like a predator waiting for a twig to snap. Next to him sat Vanessa Sterling. She was the twig that was about to snap. Vanessa was undeniably stunning, a blonde vision in a shimmering silver dress that clung to her like a second skin. She laughed at something one of Dante's lieutenants said, her hand resting possessively on Dante's thigh. But Elena noticed something the men didn't. Elena was an observer. It was a habit picked up from a childhood, spent hiding in closets while her father dealt with loan sharks. She learned to read the micro-expressions, the tics, the nervous tells that preceded violence. As Elena approached the table, keeping her eyes lowered, she saw Vanessa's smile falter for a fraction of a second. The blonde woman checked her diamond-encrusted Patek Philippe watch. 10:42 p.m. She had checked it 3 times in the last 5 minutes. "More ice," Dante said. His voice was a low rumble, like distant thunder. He didn't look at Elena. He was scanning the room, his eyes darting to the entrance where the bouncers stood. "Of course, sir," Elena said softly. She reached for his glass, and that's when she saw it. Vanessa's clutch was sitting on the table, slightly open. The screen of her phone lit up with a silent notification. It wasn't a text. It was a single emoji. Green light. Vanessa's hand tightened on Dante's leg. It wasn't a touch of affection. It was an anchor. She was bracing herself. Her eyes darted to the heavy velvet curtains near the kitchen entrance, the service blind spot. Elena followed her gaze. The curtains twitched. Just a fraction. A flash of matte, black metal caught the ambient light. A suppressor. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. She looked back at the table. Dante was distracted, listening to his lieutenant, Elias, talk about a shipment coming in from the Jersey docks. He was completely exposed. If I say nothing, I live, Elena thought. If I scream, I die. But then she looked at Dante's hand. He was idly twisting a silver ring on his pinky finger. It was the same nervous habit her brother used to have before he was killed in a crossfire 2 years ago. A crossfire meant for someone else. The injustice of it rose in her throat like bile. She couldn't watch another execution. Not tonight. She had seconds. Elena turned her back to the table to grab the ice bucket from the stand. With shaking hands, she pulled a small ordering pad from her apron. She couldn't speak, the music was too loud, and if she warned him verbally, Vanessa would hear. She scribbled fast, the pen tearing slightly through the cheap paper. GF sold you out. Shooters at 9 o'clock. Kitchen exit blocked. She ripped the paper off, folding it into a tiny square. Her breath hitched. This was insanity. This was suicide. She turned back to the table. "Your ice, sir," she said, her voice trembling just enough to sound submissive, masking the terror. She picked up his heavy crystal tumbler. As she placed it back down on a napkin, she slid the folded note under the glass, pressing it firmly against his palm as she set the drink down. It was a breach of protocol. "You never touch the guests." Dante flinched, his eyes snapping to hers. For the first time, he actually saw her. He saw the hazel eyes wide with fear, the sheen of sweat on her forehead, the desperate urgency in the set of her jaw. He looked at her hand, retreating from his. Then he looked at the white square of paper beneath his fingers. "Honey," Vanessa purred, leaning into him, her other hand reaching into her clutch, likely to grab a compact, or perhaps something sharper. "You seem tense. Let's go to the penthouse early." Dante didn't answer. His thumb brushed the paper. He didn't unfold it. He didn't need to. He saw the look in the waitress's eyes. It was the look of someone staring at a ghost. He palmed the note, bringing his glass to his lips, and tilted his head back. In that split second, keeping the glass raised to obscure his mouth, he unfolded the paper with one hand and glanced down. "GF sold you out." Dante lowered the glass. The warmth in his eyes vanished, replaced by a glacial, 0-Kelvin coldness. He didn't look at the kitchen. He didn't look at the shooters. He turned his head slowly and looked at Vanessa. "Is something wrong, baby?" Vanessa asked, her smile tight. She checked her watch again. 10:44 p.m. "Time flies," Dante said, his voice flat. "What?" "You keep checking the time, Nessie. Are we late for something?" Vanessa's face went pale. Before she could answer, Dante moved. It was a blur of motion, too fast for a man of his size. He didn't reach for his gun. Not yet. He reached for the heavy oak table. With a roar that silenced the club, Dante flipped the heavy table upward, sending crystal glasses, expensive scotch, and the ice bucket flying. Crash! Down! Dante screamed, grabbing Elena by the back of her apron and hauling her behind the overturned table, just as the air filled with the deafening thwip-thwip-thwip of suppressed automatic fire. Splinters of wood exploded from the table's surface. The velvet booth disintegrated under a hail of bullets coming from the kitchen curtains. "They're here!" Elias shouted, drawing his weapon, but a red mist exploded from his chest before he could fire. He dropped to the floor, eyes glazed. Chaos erupted. Patrons screamed, scrambling over one another. The illusion of civilized luxury shattered instantly. Dante had his gun out now. A custom Sig Sauer P226. He fired 3 shots blindly over the edge of the table toward the kitchen, suppressing the attackers for a microsecond. He looked down at Elena. She was curled in a ball covering her head. "You!" Dante barked, his voice cutting through the ringing in her ears. The note said the kitchen is blocked. "Is there another way out of the back?" Elena looked up, terror warring with adrenaline. "The garbage chute corridor. It leads to the alley, but it's alarmed." "I don't care about alarms," Dante growled. He looked at Vanessa. The blonde woman had rolled away when the table flipped. She wasn't cowering. She was standing behind a marble pillar, looking toward the shooters, screaming, "He's behind the table! Flank him!" Dante's jaw tightened. The betrayal was absolute. "Let's go," Dante said, grabbing Elena's arm. "Me? Why me?" Elena shrieked as a bullet ricocheted off the floor inches from her shoe. "Because you know the way out," Dante said. "And because you just made yourself a target. If I leave you here, they'll kill you for warning me." He didn't wait for her permission. He hauled her to her feet, using his body as a shield, firing 2 rounds at a shadowy figure rushing them. The attacker dropped. Run!" They sprinted through the chaos, weaving between panicked socialites and shattered glass. Elena led the way, her server's instinct taking over. She knew the flow of this room better than anyone. She knew that the decorative mirror on the east wall wasn't just a mirror. It was a service door, disguised by the interior designer. "Here!" she shouted, slamming her shoulder against the hidden panel. It popped open, revealing a narrow, concrete hallway smelling of bleach and rot. Dante shoved her through and followed, spinning around to fire 2 shots into the lock mechanism, jamming the door shut behind them. "Go, go, go," he commanded, his hand firm on the small of her back. They ran down the corridor. Elena's non-slip shoes squeaked on the linoleum. Dante was heavy, his breathing controlled and rhythmic, while Elena felt like her lungs were burning acid. "Who are they?" Elena gasped as they rounded a corner. "The Russo family," Dante said, his tone conversational, as if discussing the weather. "And apparently, my fiancé." They reached the heavy steel door at the end of the hall, the emergency exit. "It's alarmed," Elena warned again. "Good. Let the police come. The Russos hate cops." Dante kicked the bar. The door flew open, and a piercing siren began to wail, echoing into the cool New York night. They spilled out into a narrow, grimy alleyway, filled with dumpsters. "My car is out front," Dante cursed, scanning the alley. "We can't go back around." "Wait," Elena said, pointing to a battered blue Honda Civic, parked crookedly near a grease trap. "That's mine." Dante looked at the dented, 10-year-old compact car, then at his bespoke suit, then back at the car. "Give me the keys," he demanded. "I'm driving," Elena said, surprising herself. "You're bleeding." Dante looked down. A dark stain was spreading on the left side of his suit jacket. A graze or a ricochet. He hadn't even flinched. He looked at Elena, assessing her. In the harsh light of the street lamp, she looked fragile, but her hands, though shaking, were gripping her car keys like a weapon. "Fine," he grunted. "But if you drive like a civilian, we're dead." They scrambled into the Honda. The engine sputtered to life with a whine that made Dante wince. "Go, west." Towards the Lincoln Tunnel, Dante ordered, ripping a strip of fabric from his expensive silk pocket square to press against his side. Elena slammed the car into reverse, clipping a garbage can, then threw it into drive. The tires screeched as she peeled out of the alleyway onto 10th Avenue. Behind them, the back door of the club burst open. 3 men in tactical gear spilled out. Pop, pop, pop. The rear windshield of the Honda shattered, raining safety glass onto the back seat. "Keep your head down!" Dante shouted, unbuckling his seatbelt to turn around. He punched out the remaining glass of the rear window with the butt of his gun and returned fire. The sound was deafening in the small cabin. Elena screamed but kept her foot on the gas. She wove through the late-night traffic, running a red light at 34th Street. "They're in an SUV," Dante called out, reloading his weapon with a fresh magazine he pulled from his jacket. "Black Cadillac Escalade, coming up fast on your right." Elena glanced at the side mirror. The massive grille of the Escalade was bearing down on them like a locomotive. "Hold on," Elena said. "What are you doing?" "I used to deliver pizza in Queens," she said through gritted teeth. "I know how to cut corners." She yanked the handbrake and spun the wheel hard to the left. The Honda drifted, tires smoking, sliding sideways across 3 lanes of traffic into a narrow construction off-ramp that looked closed. The Escalade, too heavy and going too fast, couldn't make the turn. It skidded past them, slamming into the concrete divider with a bone-jarring crunch. Elena corrected the skid, floored the accelerator, and shot down the ramp, leaving the smoking wreck behind. For a full minute, the only sound in the car was the roaring wind coming through the broken back window and their own ragged breathing. Dante slumped back in the passenger seat, the gun resting on his lap. He looked over at Elena. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel, and there was a smear of blood on her cheek. His or hers, he didn't know. "You drive like a maniac," Dante said. It was almost a compliment. "You're welcome," Elena snapped, her voice trembling now that the immediate threat was gone. Where are we going? Dante checked his side. The bleeding had slowed. I have a safe house in Alpine, New Jersey. Isolated, secure, no electronics. We go there. We? Elena asked, glancing at him. Drop me off at a police station. I did my part. I saved you. Dante let out a dark, humorless chuckle. You really don't understand how this works, do you, Elena? She froze. How do you know my name? I make it my business to know everyone who handles my food, Dante said softly. But that doesn't matter now. What matters is that Vanessa saw you pass that note. The Russos saw you drive the getaway car. You are an accessory. You are a loose end. If I drop you at a police station, you'll be dead within the hour. The Russos have 3 detectives on their payroll in the Midtown precinct alone. Elena felt the cold grip of panic tighten around her throat. So I'm what? A prisoner? No, Dante said, looking at the city skyline fading in the rearview mirror. You're under my protection. Until I kill every single person who was in that room tonight, you belong to me. Elena stared at the road ahead. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a deep, hollow dread. She had woken up this morning worrying about paying her electric bill. Now she was driving a Mafia boss to a hideout with a shattered window and a target on her back. Take the next exit, Dante instructed, his voice growing weaker. And Elena? What? Don't trust anyone who calls my phone, even if it says, Mom. Dante's head lolled back against the headrest. He was losing consciousness. Hey! Elena shouted, reaching over to shake him. Don't you dare pass out on me. I don't know where I'm going. Dante's eyes fluttered open, hazy and unfocused. He looked at her, and for a moment the hard mask of the Reaper slipped. He looked human, and he looked impressed. Just keep driving, he murmured, and whatever you don't stop for red lights. His eyes closed. Elena was alone, driving a dying man through the darkness, with the wolves closing in from behind. She gripped the wheel tighter. She wasn't a waitress anymore. She was a survivor. And she was going to make sure Dante Valenti lived, if only so she could kill him herself for dragging her into this mess. The drive to Alpine, New Jersey was a blur of shadows and pain. The wealthy enclave, known for housing hip-hop moguls and Wall Street titans, was silent at 2 a.m. The estates here were fortresses hidden behind wrought iron gates and acres of manicured forestry. Elena steered the battered Honda Civic up a winding, unpaved service road that Dante had weakly pointed out moments before passing out again. The car groaned as it climbed the steep incline, the suspension protesting against the ruts. We're here, Elena whispered, though she was speaking mostly to herself to keep the panic at bay. The house wasn't a mansion. It was a brutalist concrete bunker built into the side of the cliff, overlooking the Hudson River. It looked less like a home and more like a mausoleum. Elena parked the car near the heavy steel front door. She killed the engine. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the ticking of the cooling engine and Dante's ragged, wet breathing. Dante, she said, shaking his shoulder. Wake up. I can't carry you. Dante groaned, his eyes cracking open. The dark espresso color was clouded with shock. Keypad, he rasped, pointing a bloody hand toward a panel by the door. Code 1984, then biometric. Elena scrambled out of the car, rushing to the door. She punched in the code. The panel beeped, then flashed a red light. Scan thumbprint. Damn it, she hissed. She ran back to the car, opened the passenger door, and grabbed Dante's arm. I need your thumb. She hauled him out. He was dead weight, easily 200 pounds of muscle and expensive wool. Elena gritted her teeth, her boots slipping on the gravel as she dragged him toward the door. Her uniform tore at the shoulder. She didn't care. She pressed his thumb against the scanner. A mechanical clunk echoed from within the door, and it swung open on silent hinges. The interior was pitch black. Lights, Dante mumbled as they stumbled into the foyer. Voice command loose. Soft, amber recessed lighting flickered on, revealing a stark, minimalist interior. Polished concrete floors, Italian leather furniture that looked like it had never been sat on, and a wall of glass looking out over the darkness of the river. Elena didn't stop to admire the architecture. She dragged him to the white leather sofa in the center of the room and let him collapse onto it. The pristine white leather immediately began to soak up the dark crimson stain spreading from his side. "Medical kit," Dante wheezed, clutching his side. "Kitchen, behind the pantry door. There's a safe room supply." Elena ran. She found the pantry, a hidden panel that popped open to reveal a cache of weapons, stacks of cash, and a bright orange EMT trauma bag. She grabbed the bag and a bottle of Belvedere vodka from the counter, then sprinted back. She knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she ripped open his shirt. Buttons scattered across the floor. The wound was ugly, a jagged tear just above his left hip bone. "Is it deep?" Elena asked, her stomach churning. She had seen violence in her neighborhood, but she had never looked inside a person before. Dante craned his neck to look. He hissed through his teeth. "No exit wound. The bullet is still inside, hitting the pelvic bone, maybe." He looked at her, his eyes gaining a terrifying clarity. "You have to take it out." Elena recoiled. No way. I'm a waitress, Dante. I serve drinks. I don't do surgery." "If you don't," Dante said, his voice straining, "sepsis sets in, or it shifts and hits an artery. I die. If I die, the security system locks down. You'll be trapped in here until the battery backup dies or the Russos crack the code." He reached into the bag and pulled out a pair of long, silver forceps and a scalpel. He shoved them into her hands. "Pour the vodka on the wound, then on the tools, then on your hands." "I can't," Elena whimpered, tears pricking her eyes. "You drove through a shootout, Elena," Dante growled. "You saved my life once tonight. Don't let me die now because you're squeamish." He was manipulating her, and it was working. Elena took a deep breath, steeling herself. She was Elena Vance. She had survived an abusive father, eviction notices, and the mean streets of Queens. She could do this. She uncorked the vodka and poured it over his side. Dante arched his back, a guttural roar of pain escaping his throat. Sorry, Elena cried. "Do it," he yelled. Elena poured the alcohol over her hands and the instruments. She knelt closer, the metallic smell of blood filling her nose. "Go in," Dante instructed, his face pale, sweat beading on his forehead. "Find the metal. Pull it out." Elena inserted the forceps. The sensation of metal sliding against wet flesh made her want to vomit, but she clamped her jaw shut. She probed the wound. Dante gripped the edge of the sofa so hard the leather tore under his fingernails. "I feel it," she whispered. "It's stuck." "Pull," Dante gasped. Elena gripped the forceps with both hands. She felt the resistance of the bone. With a sickening pop, the bullet dislodged. She pulled it free, holding up the deformed piece of lead. Dante slumped back, exhaling a breath that shuddered through his whole body. "Good. Now staple gun. In the bag." Elena found the medical stapler. She pinched the skin together, her hands surprisingly steady now that the worst was over. Click chunk. Click chunk. Click chunk. 3 staples closed the wound. She bandaged him tightly with gauze and tape. When she finished, she sat back on her heels, her apron covered in blood, her hands shaking uncontrollably now that the adrenaline was crashing. Dante lay there for a long time, eyes closed. Elena thought he had passed out, but then he spoke. "You have good hands." Elena let out a dry, hysterical laugh. "I usually use them to carry martinis." She grabbed the vodka bottle and took a long swig herself, the burn grounding her. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "Why did she do it?" Elena asked into the silence. "Vanessa. She had everything. You looked like a power couple." Dante opened his eyes. He didn't look at Elena. He looked at the ceiling. "Vanessa isn't just a trophy wife. Her maiden name isn't Sterling. It's Calabrese." Elena frowned. "Calabrese? Like the syndicate in Chicago?" "Cousins," Dante said. "I thought she wanted to merge our families, unite the East Coast. I let my guard down because I thought she was greedy for power. I understand greed. I can control greed." "So, what was it?" Revenge, Dante said softly. 5 years ago, I took over the waterfront territories. A lot of people vanished. One of them was her brother. I didn't know. He turned his head to look at Elena. She waited 5 years, played the role, slept in my bed, just waiting for the moment I was most exposed. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. She played the long game. And she lost, Dante said, his voice hardening again. Because a waitress noticed she checked her watch one too many times. He tried to sit up, but winced. Help me up. I need to get to the comms room. You need to rest, Elena argued. I rest when they're dead. Help me. Elena sighed and stood up, offering him her shoulder. As he leaned on her, his face inches from hers, she smelled the mix of expensive cologne, blood, and antiseptic. It was an intoxicating, dangerous scent. What's your price, Elena? He asked quietly as they hobbled toward a steel door in the back. What? Everyone has a price. You saved me. When this is over, what do you want? Money? A house? A restaurant of your own? Elena looked at him. I want to survive the night, Dante. Let's start there. Dante looked at her, really looked at her, and a faint, impressed smirk touched his lips. Fair enough. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, blindingly bright. Elena woke up with a start. She was curled up on a rug in the comms room, a jacket thrown over her. She sat up, her body aching. The events of the night before rushed back. The shooting. The surgery. The blood. Dante was sitting in a high-tech ergonomic chair in front of a wall of monitors. He had changed. He was wearing a black tactical turtleneck and dark cargo pants, his injured side bulked up by bandages. He looked pale, but focused. He was typing furiously on a keyboard with one hand. You're up, he said without turning around. There's coffee in the kitchenette. Espresso machine costs more than your car. Figure it out. Elena stood up, stretching. Good morning to you, too. She walked over to the monitors. They showed various news feeds. Breaking news. Gang war erupts in Manhattan. Obsidian Lounge massacre. 12 dead. Police hunt for Dante Valenti. They're spinning it fast, Dante muttered. Look at this. He clicked a window, maximizing a video clip. It was a press conference held outside the ruined club. Vanessa was there, looking perfectly disheveled. Fake tears. Smudged mascara. She was clinging to a tall, uniformed police officer. He snapped. Vanessa sobbed into the microphones. Dante has been unstable for months. He started shooting at his own men. I barely escaped with my life. He kidnapped one of the waitresses. Poor girl. I pray she's still alive. Elena's jaw dropped. She's framing you, and she's saying you kidnapped me? Smart, Dante assessed coldly. Now, if the police find you, they won't arrest you. They'll rescue you. And by rescue, she means the dirty cops on her payroll will silence you before you can testify that she gave the signal. So I can't even go to the cops, Elena realized, the trap closing in around her. I'm a fugitive. We are ghosts, Dante corrected. But ghosts can still bite. He spun his chair around. I've been tracking the Russo chatter. They think I'm bleeding out in a ditch somewhere. They don't know about this house. It was purchased through 3 shell companies and a trust fund in the Cayman Islands. It doesn't exist on paper. So we're safe here? Elena asked, hopeful. Safe is a relative term, Dante said. He pointed to a screen showing a satellite feed of the property. I have perimeter sensors in the woods. Nothing has tripped them. So what do we do, wait? No, we hit back. But first, I need you to do something for me. Dante slid a heavy, matte black smartphone across the desk. I need you to call your mother. Elena froze. You said not to trust anyone. You said. I need to know if they've gotten to your family, Dante said, his voice surprisingly gentle. If the Russos are smart, and they are, they've already pulled your employment file. They know where your mom lives in Astoria. They know about your younger sister in college. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. If they touch them... Call, Dante commanded. Speakerphone. Keep it under 30 seconds. Code words only. Do you have a code? Yes, Elena whispered. She dialed with shaking fingers. The phone rang twice. Hello? Her mother's voice. She sounded tired. "Mom, it's me," Elena said, her voice tight. "Listen, I can't talk long. I won the lottery." There was a pause. "The lottery? Elena, honey, are you okay?" "Two men were here this morning looking for you. Detectives. They said you were in trouble." Elena's eyes met Dante's. He nodded grimly. "I'm fine, Mom. But I need you to take Sarah and go to Aunt Marie's. Now. Don't pack. Just go. Tell them I won the lottery." "Elena, you're scaring me. These men, they're sitting in a car outside right now." Dante's eyes widened. He made a cut-it motion across his throat. "I love you, Mom. Go out the back. Now." Elena hung up, her chest heaving. "They're watching her house." "They're using her as bait," Dante said. "They want you to panic and run to her. Then they grab you, and they trade you for me." "We have to help them," Elena pleaded. "We will," Dante said, standing up. He winced but pushed through the pain. "But not by running into a trap. We need leverage." Suddenly, a red light began to strobe on the main console. A low, rhythmic thrum, thrum, thrum sound echoed through the room. "What is that?" Elena asked. Dante's face went hard as stone. He looked at the perimeter monitor. "Motion sensors." "Sector 4, the driveway." "I thought you said nobody knew about this place." "They shouldn't," Dante growled. He tapped a few keys, bringing up the camera feed from the front gate. It wasn't a Russo hit squad. It wasn't a black Escalade. It was a lone police cruiser. And behind it, a black van with no markings. "How?" Dante whispered. Then his eyes snapped to Elena. "Your car." "My car?" "The Honda. Does it have a LoJack?" "A tracker? An insurance dongle?" Elena's hands flew to her mouth. "My insurance. The safe driver. Plug in under the dashboard. It tracks GPS for discounts." Dante cursed loudly, slamming his fist onto the desk. "They didn't track me. They tracked you." He grabbed a remote and pressed a button. Heavy steel shutters began to descend over the windows with a mechanical whine. "We have maybe 3 minutes before they breach the front door," Dante said, moving to the weapons locker. He pulled out an AR-15 assault rifle and a smaller compact Glock 19. He tossed the Glock to Elena. She caught it clumsily, nearly dropping it. "I don't know how to use this," she shouted. "Point, pull, repeat," Dante said, checking the magazine on his rifle. "Safety is off. There is no trigger guard. Don't shoot your foot." "Dante, there's only 2 of us, and you can barely walk." "Then we have the element of surprise," Dante said, a dark, predatory grin spreading across his face. "They think they're coming for a wounded animal and a waitress. They don't know they're walking into a kill box." On the screen, the police cruiser rammed the gate. The black van followed. Heavily armed men in SWAT gear, but with no police insignias, poured out of the van. "Kill box?" Elena asked, terrified. "I didn't just buy this house for the view, Elena," Dante said, limping toward the hallway. "I rigged it. The foyer is mine. The hallway is a choke point." He looked back at her. "Stay behind me. If they get past me, you run to the panic room in the basement. Do not let them take you alive. You saw their faces at the club. They won't leave witnesses." Elena gripped the cold polymer of the gun. The weight of it felt alien, heavy with the promise of violence. "I'm not running," she said, surprising herself again. Her voice shook, but her feet stayed planted. "I'm tired of running." Dante looked at her, and for a second, the mask slipped. He looked proud. "Good girl," he murmured. "Now get down." Boom! The front door exploded inward. Smoke filled the monitors. "Here we go," Dante whispered. He raised the rifle. The explosion that shattered the front door was deafening. A concussive wave that rattled the very teeth in Elena's skull. Dust and pulverized drywall plumed into the hallway like a thick, choking fog. Elena scrambled backward, her heels digging into the polished concrete, the Glock 19 heavy and trembling in her grip. She pressed herself against the wall, eyes wide, staring into the swirling gray cloud. "Hold!" Dante's voice cut through the ringing in her ears. He was a statue of violence, kneeling behind the kitchen island, the AR-15 shouldered and steady. He wasn't looking at the door. He was looking at a small, innocuous panel on the wall. Through the smoke, shadow figures emerged. Tactical lights cut through the haze. 1, 2, 4 beams of blinding white light. "Clear left," a voice shouted from the smoke. "Move up! Target is wounded." They moved with professional precision, boots crunching on the debris. They were confident. They thought they were clearing a room of a dying man and a civilian girl. They stepped onto the foyer rug. Dante didn't shoot the men. He shot the wall panel. Click. The floor beneath the rug in the foyer wasn't concrete. It was a pressure plate rigged to a directional charge hidden in the ceiling molding. Crack boom! The ceiling above the entryway disintegrated, raining down jagged chunks of reinforced concrete and shrapnel. The screams were immediate and terrible. The tactical lights spun wildly as the lead team was buried under tons of debris. "Move!" Dante roared, pushing himself up. He opened fire into the smoke, the crack of the rifle deafening in the enclosed space. He wasn't firing blindly. He was suppressing the second wave trying to climb over their fallen comrades. "Elena! The hallway! Go!" Elena scrambled to her feet, her legs feeling like jelly. She ran toward the back hallway, but as she passed the living room window, glass shattered inward. A grappling hook caught the frame. A black-clad figure swung through the broken window, boots slamming onto the floor. He was huge, his face obscured by a gas mask. He raised a submachine gun, spotting Elena instantly. Time seemed to slow down. Elena saw the barrel of his gun turning toward her. She saw the cold, insect-like reflection of the room in his mask's lenses. She didn't think. Instinct, primal and terrifying, took over. She raised the Glock. She didn't aim like they did in movies. She just shoved the gun out in front of her and squeezed the trigger. Bang, bang, bang. The recoil shocked her arms. The first shot went wide, shattering a vase. The second hit the mercenary in the shoulder, spinning him around. The third hit him in the neck, just below the helmet line. He dropped like a stone, gurgling. Elena froze. The gun smoked in her hand. She stared at the man writhing on the floor, the blood pooling dark and fast on the white tiles. "I killed him. I just killed a person. Elena!" Dante was there, grabbing her arm, shaking her out of the trance. He saw the body. He saw the look in her eyes, the 1,000-yard stare of a soul that had just been fractured. "Don't look at him," Dante commanded, his voice rough but anchoring. "Look at me! Look at me!" Elena looked up at him, tears streaming down her face mixed with dust. You survived," Dante said fiercely. "That's all that matters. Now move!" More gunfire erupted from the front of the house. The second wave had breached the rubble. Bullets chewed up the drywall around them. Dante returned fire, backing them down the corridor toward the heavy steel door of the basement. He punched in a code, and the door hissed open. He shoved Elena inside and followed, slamming the locking mechanism home. "Are we safe?" Elena gasped, sliding down the wall to the floor. "For about 2 minutes," Dante said, reloading his rifle. "They have thermite charges. They'll burn through that door." He limped toward a heavy yellow pipe running along the basement ceiling. It was the main gas line for the house. "What are you doing?" "Scorched earth," Dante said grimly. "Protocol Omega." He took a small C4 charge from a pouch on his belt and adhered it to the gas line. Then he set a timer on his watch. 120 seconds. "This house is compromised," Dante explained, moving to the back of the basement where a wine cellar stood. "Any evidence here, any DNA, any trace of us, it disappears." He pushed a heavy wine rack aside. Behind it wasn't a wall, but a dark, damp tunnel hewn from the bedrock. "The escape tunnel leads to a storm drain that empties into the Hudson. I have a Zodiac boat stashed there." He looked at Elena. She was still trembling, looking at her hands. Dante knelt before her, ignoring the agony in his side. He took her hands in his. His grip was warm, calloused, and bloody. "Elena," he said softly, "listen to me. You are not a murderer. You are a soldier in a war you didn't ask for. That man came to kill you. He came to kill your family. You defended your life. Do you understand? Elena took a ragged breath. She looked at the man who had brought this chaos into her life. He was a monster to the world, but in this moment, he was the only thing standing between her and death. "I understand," she whispered. "Good. Now get up. We have 90 seconds before this whole cliffside becomes a crater." They ran. The tunnel was cold, smelling of river water and mold. They splashed through ankle-deep water, the darkness oppressive. Behind them, muffled by the rock, they could hear the hiss of the thermite burning through the steel door. They reached the end of the tunnel, a rusted grate. Dante kicked it open, and they spilled out onto a rocky embankment hidden by overgrown reeds. The gray expanse of the Hudson River stretched out before them, choppy and cold. Dante located the camouflage tarp and ripped it away, revealing a black, inflatable Zodiac with a rigid hull and a heavy outboard motor. "Get in," he ordered. As Elena scrambled into the boat, Dante shoved it off the rocks and jumped in. He yanked the starter cord. The engine roared to life. "Get down!" He gummed the throttle, spinning the boat around and shooting out toward the center of the river. They were 300 yards out when it happened. A massive fireball erupted from the cliffside. The concrete bunker disintegrated, the shockwave rippling the water around their small boat. Flames licked the sky, sending a plume of black smoke hundreds of feet into the air. Elena watched the destruction, her hair whipping in the wind. The place where she had performed surgery, where she had slept, where she had killed a man, it was gone, erased. "They'll think we died in there," Dante said, steering the boat south, toward the city skyline that loomed like a jagged set of teeth in the distance. "The forensics will be a mess. It buys us time." "Time for what?" Elena asked, shouting over the wind and the motor. Dante looked forward, his eyes cold and hard as diamonds. "Time to go hunting." In a grimy motel room in Weehawken, Dante sat on the edge of the bed, stitching his own wound with grim efficiency. Elena paced the floor, the adrenaline of the explosion fading into a cold dread. "The world thinks we're dead," Elena said. "Vanessa has the empire. We have nothing." "Vanessa has the territory," Dante corrected, biting off the thread. "But she doesn't have the money." He explained the existence of the Ghost Ledger, a physical book containing access codes to $3 billion in offshore accounts and blackmail files on every corrupt official in New York. It was the heart of the beast. "It's in the Vanderhoven vaults," Dante said. "But I can't go in. My face is on every news channel." He pulled a heavy object from his pocket, a platinum ring with a massive black onyx stone. He tossed it to Elena. "This is the signet. It has an embedded NFC chip. The bearer of the ring is the voice of the king. You have to go in as my proxy." Elena stared at the ring. "I'm a waitress, Dante. I can't walk into a high-security vault for billionaires." "You aren't a waitress anymore," Dante said, his eyes locking onto hers. "You're a ghost. And you're the only person I trust." An hour later, Elena walked into the marble lobby of the Vanderhoven Depository. She was transformed, wearing a tailored black suit and dark sunglasses, radiating icy indifference. She approached the concierge. "I am here for the Valenti box." The concierge hesitated. "Mr. Valenti's accounts are under review given the recent tragedy." "I didn't ask for a review," Elena said, channeling every ounce of arrogance she had ever seen Vanessa use. "I am the executor of his estate." She raised her hand. The onyx ring flashed under the chandelier. The concierge froze. He recognized the authority instantly. "Right this way, ma'am." They descended into the vault. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs, but her hand remained steady as she used the ring to unlock box 404. Inside lay the leather-bound ledger and a bag of uncut diamonds. "I got it," she whispered into her hidden earpiece. "Good," Dante's voice crackled in her ear. "Walk out slow. Don't run." Elena secured the bag and exited the bank, stepping out into the blinding afternoon sun. She turned the corner to the extraction point where Dante's van was waiting. The van was gone. In its place sat a sleek, black limousine. The window rolled down to reveal Vanessa Sterling, sipping champagne. Next to her sat Arthur, the floor manager from the club, sporting a black eye. "Hello, darling," Vanessa purred. "Arthur told us everything about your little crush on my late husband." Elena froze. "Where is Dante?" Alive. For now, Vanessa smiled cruelly. He's the guest of honor for tonight's festivities. My new fiancé, the man who actually runs this city, is eager to meet him. Vanessa extended a manicured hand. Give me the book, Elena, and maybe I'll let you watch him die quickly. Elena looked at the ledger in her bag. It was the only leverage she had. If she gave it up, they both died. If she kept it, Dante was alone. She remembered Dante's words. You are a soldier. Elena didn't hand over the book. Instead, she screamed at the top of her lungs. Help! Thief! They're stealing my baby! The sudden noise startled the pedestrians. A crowd formed instantly. Vanessa's bodyguard hesitated, unwilling to shoot in front of 50 witnesses. Seizing the confusion, Elena didn't run away. She ran into traffic. She threw herself onto the hood of a passing yellow taxi. Drive! She screamed at the terrified driver, pointing her gun through the windshield. Drive, or I swear to God I'll shoot. The taxi screeched away, leaving Vanessa's limo trapped in the gridlock of gawking tourists. Elena lay flat on the roof of the speeding cab, clutching the bag to her chest. She was alone. Dante was captured. But she had the ring, and she had the ledger. Hang on, Dante, she whispered into the wind. I'm coming for you. Elena stood in the back room of a dusty tailor shop in the village. Across from her sat Silvio, the retired consigliere of the Valenti family, a shotgun resting on his wheelchair. He chose a waitress? Silvio grunted, eyeing the heavy platinum onyx ring on Elena's thumb. He chose a survivor, Elena corrected, her voice steel. Vanessa Sterling is executing Dante tonight at the plaza. I have the ring and I have the ledger. Are you with me? Silvio grinned, a terrifying sight. We've been waiting for the call. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was a sea of black tuxedos and nervous whispers. Vanessa Sterling stood on stage in a blood-red gown, feigning tears. Beside her stood Marco Russo, the brute head of the rival family. Tonight we mourn, Vanessa announced. Dante has suffered a tragic medical emergency. To honor him, the Valenti and Russo families will merge. Behind her, the curtains parted. Dante was strapped to a wheelchair, battered and barely conscious, an IV drip connected to his arm. Vanessa leaned down to him, whispering, It's potassium chloride, darling. 2 minutes, and your heart stops. I win. Dante lifted his heavy head, a defiant fire still burning in his eyes. You forgot the waitress. Boom. The ballroom doors didn't open. They were kicked off their hinges. Elena Vance stood in the archway. Gone was the uniform. She wore a midnight blue velvet gown that looked like armor. Behind her stood 12 men. The old guard, gray-haired veterans, armed with automatic rifles. I object to the Union, Elena's voice rang out. Who is that? Marco Russo roared. I am the executor of the Valenti estate, Elena declared, gliding forward as the crowd parted in fear. She raised her hand, the onyx ring flashing. That's the help! Vanessa shrieked. Kill her! Marco's men drew their weapons, but Elena didn't flinch. She pulled the stolen phone from her clutch. Take one step and I release the files, she said calmly. I have the ghost ledger. And Marco? Vanessa didn't sell Dante out to help you. She did it because he found out she's been stealing 40% of your shipments. Marco froze. What? Elena tapped the screen. The massive projection behind the stage shifted from Dante's photo to bank statements. Wire transfers. Proof of Vanessa paying gangs to hijack Russo trucks. She played you, Marco, Elena said. Marco turned on Vanessa, his face purple with rage. You stole from me? She's lying, Vanessa screamed, backing away. Kill her! Marco roared, not at Elena, but at Vanessa. Defend the Queen! Silvio shouted. Chaos erupted. The old guard opened fire on Marco's soldiers. As the room dissolved into panic, Marco lunged for Vanessa, tackling her to the ground. Elena didn't watch. She sprinted to the stage. She ripped the lethal IV from Dante's arm and shot the lock off his cuffs with her Glock. Dante stumbled forward, catching himself on her shoulder. "You came back," he wheezed, looking at her in awe. "I forgot my tip." She smiled breathlessly. Dante grabbed the emergency shotgun from under the podium and fired a blast into the ceiling. "Enough!" The fighting stopped. Marco, hands around Vanessa's throat, looked up. "Get out!" Dante ordered the room. "If you aren't family, leave." The guests fled. Dante aimed the gun at Marco and Vanessa. "Do it!" Marco spat. "No," Elena said, placing a hand on Dante's chest. "Don't be a butcher, Dante. Be a king." "I already sent the files to the FBI. They're outside." Dante looked at her, then lowered the weapon. "You're right!" Sirens wailed. SWAT teams swarmed the room, arresting a sobbing Vanessa and a raging Marco. As they were dragged away, Dante pulled Elena close, kissing her amidst the ruins of his coronation. 3 months later, the Obsidian Lounge was reborn, brighter, cleaner, more exclusive. Elena sat at table 4. She wasn't wearing an apron. She was wearing a white blazer, reviewing profits on a tablet. "Your drink, ma'am." Elena looked up. Dante stood there, looking healthy and relaxed in a crisp white shirt, holding a sparkling water. "I didn't order this," she teased. "Compliments of the house." Dante smirked. "I hear the owner is tough to please." "She expects perfection." Dante leaned down, kissing the onyx ring still on her finger. "The ledger is gone. The enemies are in prison. The business is clean." "And you, Valenti?" she asked. "What are you now?" "Just a retired consultant," he whispered, kissing her neck, "and a husband." Elena smiled, the look of a woman who had walked through fire and taken the throne. "Get back to work," she laughed. "As you wish, boss." And that is how a waitress brought down the Mafia's biggest traitors with nothing but a napkin and nerves of steel. Elena Vance proved that sometimes the person serving the drinks is the most dangerous one in the room. Dante thought he was the savior, but in the end, he was the one who needed saving. It's a story about loyalty, betrayal, and how true power isn't about fear, it's about trust. Vanessa had the money and the muscle, but she lacked the one thing Elena had, a reason to fight that wasn't just greed. If you loved this twist-filled Mafia romance, please smash that like button. It helps the channel so much. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. What would you have done in Elena's shoes? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.